Welcome to another episode of the Ginger ROAMance. Here, you'll hear anonymous stories from travellers all over the world. Real submissions from real people. Tales of connection, romance, passion, heartbreak, friendship, and love in all its forms. Because every kind of love deserves to be told. This week's episode is called How I Met My Husband. From Venice, Italy. What was supposed to be a carefree backpacking adventure across Europe turned into something that stayed with me for the rest of my life. Something I still can't shake, in the best possible way. After meeting a friend for a holiday in Portugal, we arrived back in London, bags packed and ready to start our Europe tour. We'd both just finished our gap years and had returned home only to feel lost, bored, and like we didn't quite fit into our own lives anymore. One short conversation later, we had convinced each other that what we really needed was a Euro trip. And a few weeks after that, we were off. Absolutely broke, but somehow we made it happen. On our first night back in London before the tour started, we wanted to take it easy after a week of endless parties. We went to a bar just long enough to briefly meet a few people, and then we called it a night. But that wasn't the case for everyone else. I don't remember him from that night. The next morning, 3 separate bus tours were all leaving at the same time and in the same direction. Everyone made it onto their bus, except for one traveller. A guy from our brief encounter at the bar the night before. He had slept through his alarm and missed the departure completely. Word soon spread through all the buses, and it was a great laugh. Until we got to Paris. Because somehow, Mr. Sleep-In had taken a train and beaten us there anyway. This story isn't about him, by the way. At a Parisian bakery, we ran into Mr. Sleep-In again. And he was there with someone else from his tour. Quiet, reserved. I don't remember speaking to him or officially meeting him that day, but something about him caught my eye. The tours continued on to Switzerland. Everyone did their own thing during the day, and later that evening, when we got back to the camp tents for dinner, Mr. Sleep-In called us over to tell us what the boys had done for the day. And he was there too. We barely knew them. We were on different buses, but for some reason, they just folded us in like we'd been friends the whole time. That's the first time I remember him properly. The party kicked on for the night. Everyone was having a great time, and he still had no idea who I was. Eventually, our tours split and headed in different directions, and I didn't think any more of it. But then, in Venice, our paths crossed again. Everyone spent the day exploring, bumping into each other around every second corner in that tiny maze of a city. And we ended the night at a masquerade party, all of us together again. By this stage, we were a few weeks into the tour, and the holiday romances had started to blossom. We were staying in little cabins that each had 2 single beds. Not exactly the type of accommodation you want to share with anyone in a hookup situation. As the party drew to a close, everyone peeled off to their rooms. Mr. Sleep-In was sharing with him, but he was already entertaining someone in there. My roommate ended up having a girls' sleepover in the spare bed that Mr. Sleep-In's friend had left, which meant there was now one single empty bed in my cabin. Not wanting anyone to have to sleep outside, I offered him the spare bed. He politely took me up on the offer. The next morning, we were back on the buses, off on separate routes, fully assuming we would never see each other again. I did what I always did after a night out. I added everyone on Facebook, including him. I sent him a polite, "Nice to meet you" message, and I thought nothing more of it. Surprisingly, he replied. For weeks, neither of us said anything that needed a reply, but somehow the conversation just kept going and going and going. Until weeks later, when both of our tours had finished, we met up in London. We said our goodbyes in London, but again, the conversation unexpectedly just kept flowing. Back in Australia, he invited me to spend New Year's with him on the other side of the country. And to my complete surprise, I said yes. The next 12 months were long-distance messages, calls, flights, meeting in random cities whenever we could, until he moved across the country to live with me. I don't know when or how or why I fell in love with him. But this year, 12 years later, I married him. And that is how I met my husband. Thanks for listening. Make sure you're following along to keep up to date with weekly stories that will inspire, entertain, and maybe even make you fall in love with the idea of love itself. Got your own romance story and want to be a part of the Ginger Romance community? Check the notes for details on how to submit your own.